Gregg Lehman. I have 35 years of varied experience. Three firms. I ran CEO for private equity owned or private equity backed companies, and then 2 companies were publicly held. All of those have had successful exits. So basically, it's been in healthcare services. It's also been in treatment for frail elderly, Medicare Advantage type patients, hospice related, medical device manufacturing, and wellness. Now I'm working for a private equity fund, helping them with a business services company, and we're going into 6 years, so we're kind of at the end of the life cycle. So basically, I'm a bronze member of Blackmore, and the reason I decided to take this leap of faith is I read the collateral, I looked at the videos, and I said, you know, for my portfolio life after this business, I don't want to look at hundreds of PE firms to really figure out what it is I want to do. And so, you know, I started thinking about, you know, putting on paper what my thesis was for life after being a CEO. And I said, well, you know, I'm not sure my life is over being a CEO. But what I thought is, you know, I've got a lot of value to add to PE funds in terms of analyzing deals and actually bringing expertise in several verticals to the table. But the question is, how do you find the right firm? There are a lot of nuances. Yes. So what I'm getting out of my bronze membership is coming to the conference and really listening to how they evaluate deals. How important is the right CEO? How important it is to have a CEO that honors the history of the company, but changes the culture to be high performance. And it takes a more of a Pied Piper leader, somebody that understands and can learn the business quickly, but also help the PE fund, depending on the level of due diligence that they've done, to basically go in there and say, here's some areas that need to be addressed in the next 90 days, and then go about getting the resources to do that. A lot of it has to do with how much CapEx are they willing to spend, how much more are they going to invest. Case in point, with the 2 firms that I had, we did 3 of the last private equity-backed companies that I ran. We did roll-up acquisitions for hospices. In this current company, we bought a portal that was a value buy because it didn't have only 3 customers. It didn't have a lot of business, but it was scalable. And so it allowed us to scale the business and add at least 5 percentage points to our EBITDA margin as a result of automating a lot of manual processes. So this conference is really helping me think through and maybe change. It doesn't change my deal thesis, but it changes how I'm going to approach the market. By that I mean I can meet with people and speed date with a lot more private equity funds who understand what I'm good at, what I'm interested in. At lunch today, the gentleman I was having lunch with said, well, even if you're not ready right now, you're still trying to sell a private equity owned company. Would you be open to being on one of my boards, because we have a need for somebody like that?
Yeah, who was that?
It was Geneva.
Yeah.
And so all of that, I think, is exciting because now my process of vetting just got easier.
Yep.
And what Blackmore brings to the table is sorting through a large database based on...
Talk about the database and how important that is in private equity, and especially in light of the conference, because it gives new color.
Well, it does. And one of the things that I started to do, which was an exercise in futility, was to do internet searches.
Tell us about it. Tell me what it's like to use the internet.
So the internet service, I actually had a large Rolodex of other private equity funds that I worked with. So I would call them, I would look at their websites. When I Googled, I would Google, for example, healthcare-centric private equity funds. And there's hundreds and hundreds of those, different sizes. So then I would winnow it down to middle market type deals where they have they like minimum of 5 to 10 million of EBITDA, and corresponding revenue, 10% of EBITDA dropped to the bottom line, and then I went to their website. I learned nothing.
That's right.
I learned
time to do
absolutely nothing, and then I would call a managing partner, and he would say, "Who are you?"
Yeah, that's right.
And can you send me a bio? But we don't have anything. We're raising another fund, and I got very frustrated, and I thought, and my experience may be a little different than some of the other bronze or gold members, and the reason being is I've never looked for a job. I mean,
most guys haven't.
For the last 35 years, people have come to me who have known what I've done and my track record.
Right.
So now I'm in a situation where I can be pickier and choose my partner as opposed to just taking whatever comes across my transom.
Yes.
And I don't want to do that any longer. So with this conference being my first conference, my takeaway was the select number of private equity funds that are here were a good cross-section of how they do deals.
Yeah.
And also what they look for in a CEO. The other thing that I learned is that, and I think this is pretty representative, they really like the owner and the founder to leave some equity in the deal, to have some skin in the game.
Yep.
And I've also found that what I have experienced of the management team getting somewhere between 9 and 11% of stock options is pretty much in the wheelhouse.
Yep.
So now I'm at the point where I'm saying I need to leverage my experience, medical device, hospice, business services, all of those types of things. And healthcare is exploding right now, and even I've added to my portfolio or my desires to really look into the healthcare IT space. So
how is Blackmore Connects going to help you save time and leverage your expertise using the resources they have? What do they have that you just can't get anywhere else that you are discerning?
So once I developed a deal thesis, and then I work with filling out.
What is a deal thesis? What have you learned? What a deal thesis is?
So the deal thesis for me, which I've never had
example, not a specific one.
Yeah, but just
general
what I've learned. So I've never had to do one.
Yeah.
So now what I learned is that it really needs to be specific to what areas you feel you have
Just
subject matter expertise.
Yes.
And that to me is critical. Rather than just spitballing and throwing a lot of ideas against the wall, zero it in based on who you're going to look attractive to.
Yes.
To help you find a business, or you bring a business, and then what I found out working with Chris, it's really been helpful for me to fill out all this information and then have him go through your voluminous database, and he can
talk about the database and all the parameters that you notice that it has.
So the database to me was extremely impressive because it has categories and subcategories which I couldn't find in an internet search.
No way. Yep.
And then, in addition to that, some of the
give me some examples of categories and subcategories that are critical to narrow the right PE firm.
So, as an example, healthcare is a very general thing, and it can be pharmaceutical, consumer goods. It's a very broad brush. And so, when I tried to do that search on my own, I couldn't find the right company. So, I'm not into B2C, B2B. What I really wanted to find out is who can be a service provider or a company that could be scaled and do a potential roll-up. So some of the subcategories would be early stage SaaS type healthcare software companies, companies that are kind of at the mezzanine level that are really doing a lot of things like interoperability with electronic medical records. Since I'm also working as a board member for an infusion therapy company, it's again in medical devices, learning about you CRM systems and learning who basically has the capability and the interest in their fund for those subcategories. I could not find that on my own.
No way.
And
It's
so
not even listed on websites.
no, it's not listed on websites, and sometimes you can't even learn that because the managing director or partner doesn't know who you are.
Right.
They have no background. So once I find that, and then can have a more robust deal thesis, and then say, here's what I want to do. I want to hear more about your fund. I want to learn what your criteria would be, and then let me tell you what I've done and see if there's a good fit.
So a lot of executives keep, hoping the phone's going to ring, the recruiter's going to ring. I mean, here you are, a 3-time PE firm. What advice do you have executives hoping for the phone to ring, or they're going to do it with a small funnel, or even try to do all their own research on themselves to get it in private?
You will run out of time and you'll be disappointed.
Yeah.
Because rarely does the phone ring, and that's the ideal job.
Yeah.
So it just never happens.
Yeah.
So what I've learned is be proactive.
Be proactive.
Don't wait for the phone to ring. Make sure that you do your research, your homework, and then put out a wider net.
Yes.
And the other thing is, I agree with what you said, Gerald, that if you just look at 10 PE firms or 5 PE firms, and you put all your eggs in one basket prematurely, and something spooks them on their due diligence, you're starting from scratch again. So have multiple plates spinning
at the same
time, and then you'll be in a position, I think, if you have 2 or 3 offers, great. You could choose which one is the best fit.
Yeah.
And don't cut off the others, because if they balk because of due diligence, you can go to plan B or plan C. Yeah. But it's still in the same suite.
And it's the same thing with job offers. So many of these PE firms that the Blackmore Connects are going to do, they're going to need people. But it may not be you may get an offer, but it may not be worth it.
You're right.
Depending on what stage it's at, it may be in its 4th year, 5th year, your options aren't worth as much, the upside isn't worth as much, you're going into a cooling market, you just don't know.
So one of the things, if I could just add what I've really, because I'm stretched pretty thin with a lot of things going on, but what I've done when I travel, when I'm at home or in a hotel room, I plug into your library and I listen to a lot of stories from some of the PE funds, some of the executives, and it's really honed the way I present myself and how I can really be attractive to them as a potential partner.
Really great point, because you're not going to. There's no way to find out that information unless you already have someone pulling it out.
Right.
That's why we have that library.
Yeah. So that to me has been worth every penny that I spent, and the conferences to me are just icing on the cake. Yeah. So I look forward to the other conferences this year. Right. I plan to be there, and I plan to work with you and hit a home run on this deal.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it.